Students, in this video now I want to explain about the Compton effect. H. Compton in 1932 observed that when X-rays are scattered by some scattering material like carbon, then apart from the original wavelength, a wavelength larger than the original wavelength is observed in the scattered beam. It is so as it is invented by the Compton, we call it as the Compton effect. So carbon here he took carbon filament which act as a scattering element. Scattering means it reflects the light whatever falls on it. So such materials are here called as the scattering materials and he exposed that the carbon filament to the X-rays. So the scattered X-rays have the larger wavelength than the incident X-rays. So he observed a increase in the wavelength of the X-rays. So such increase in the wavelength of the scattered X-rays than the X-rays that are that are falling on that filament is known as the Compton effect. So here we can define the Compton effect as the phenomenon in which the wavelength of the radiation scattered by an element is greater than that of the incident radiation. A simple phenomenon and a simple definition is there. Compton, once again I read the definition. Compton effect is a phenomenon in which the wavelength of the radiation scattered by an element is greater than that of the incident radiation. So this is very simple. And look here. So Compton proposed an equation in order to calculate the increase in the wavelength that occurs due to this phenomenon, and in deriving that equation he made some assumptions regarding the scattering materials. So we go for them one by one. Here 7 such assumptions are there. We go for them one by one. First assumption is that a free electron is always present in all scattering materials. According to him, all the scattering materials contain free electrons in them. And second assumption is that a free electron is supposed to be at rest. So according to him, the free electrons are at rest. And third assumption is that the collision between electron and photon is elastic collisions. That means when the collisions are elastic, we may apply the law of conservation of mass and the law of conservation of momentum. So this assumption is made. And we go for the fourth assumption, which says that a free electron can only be knocked out by a definite amount of energy called threshold energy. And other electrons which are in the attraction of the nucleus are not knocked by the incident light. So according to him, only free electrons can be knocked out by the incident light, and that the incident light should have certain minimum amount of energy. That minimum amount of energy here is called as the threshold energy. And fifth assumption is that energy of incident photon is supposed to be greater than that of the threshold energy. That means the incident light should have energy than the required one. So it should the energy possessed by that light should be somewhat greater than the threshold energy. Threshold means minimum energy required. And if the light that is used to collide the electrons has the less or the energy equal to the threshold energy, then that is not going to cause any change in the momentum of the free electrons. So the energy of the incident photon must be somewhat greater than the threshold energy. Next we go for the sixth assumption, that the beam of the photon is monochromatic and consists of a single wavelength and frequency. So here we should use monochromatic light. So that's why we can easily analyze what happening in the process. Next we go for the seventh assumption, that for the particles like electrons, the E is what is that? E is equal to m6. We know the Einstein's equation, no? That is the E is equal to m6 square. Yes, look here, here it is there. E is equal to m6 square relation holds good. So this is Einstein's theory equation. So here and here m of the electron can be calculated by using another equation, that is the m is equal to the m dash upon under root of 1 minus nu square, v square by c square. M is equal m naught upon the under root of 1 minus v square by c square. So like that we can calculate the mass of the moving electrons here, and m naught is the mass of the resting electron. That means here the free electron, and here m is the effective mass of the electron when moving with velocity v. So m naught is the rest mass and m is the mass of the moving electrons, and c is the velocity of the light in the vacuum. So by using this Einstein's equation we can express the energy of the free electrons as well as the moving electrons, that means the scattered electrons. So now we go for the derivation of the equation that helps in the calculation of the increase in the wavelength due to the Compton effect. So here let us suppose that a photon of frequency nu collide with an electron at rest in the target. So here we have to assume that the frequency of the incident X-rays as the nu, and whenever it falls on the electrons, what happens means a part of this energy is imparted to the electron, which starts moving with velocity v. So before hitting, electrons are in rest, and when the X-rays hit the free electrons, then the electrons start to move with velocity v, and the angle made by the electron is theta. Assume that the angle made by the moving electron with the incident radiation is theta. Okay. Now the remaining energy is given out as a scattered X-ray photon of the lower frequency. So some portion of the incident X-ray is given to the electron, and the remaining energy is released in the form of the scattered X-rays. And assume that nu dash is the frequency of the scattered X-ray. Nu is the, look here, nu is the frequency of the incident X-rays, and nu dash is the frequency of the scattered X-rays. And here pi is the angle of the scattered X-rays that is made with the incident light. Okay na? So here theta is the angle made by the scattered electrons, and pi is the angle made by the scattered X-rays. That we have to remember. So here this diagram tells us that. Look here. This is incident radiation. If there is no electron in the path of the X-rays, then the X-rays move in this direction without making any angle. That means without undergoing any scattering, the X-rays come outside like this. But as the electron is there in the atom, as the free electron is there in the atom, the X-rays hit this electron. As a result, what happens? The direction of the electrons and the direction of the scattered X-rays. So this is the electron and this is the scattered X-rays. So both these change their path. As a result, they make certain angle with the incident radiation, and the angle made by the electron is the theta. Here we are assuming it as the theta, and the angle made by the scattered X-ray is the pi. Okay na? And here we can calculate the energy of the photons by using the Max Planck equation, that is E is equal to h nu, that we know very well. E is equal to h nu. So by using this equation we can calculate the energy of the photons. So here the energy of the incident photon is h nu, and we can calculate the momentum also. Momentum of the photon can be calculated by h nu by c. This is the momentum of the photon, and this is the what is that? Energy of the electrons. Energy of the electrons and momentum of the electrons. Of the momentum of the incident photon. Energy of the incident photon and momentum of the incident photon. And now, as X-rays and electron are scattered, then the momentum and energy breaks into two components. So now we go for that one. And look here, this phi is the angle made by the scattered X-rays, no? So here in this direction, which is opposite to the angle, the quantity of the component here becomes as the what is that? H nu. Sorry, I write here once again. Okay. This is the vertical direction and this is the horizontal direction. No? In the vertical direction, the momentum of the scattered photon becomes as h nu naught c upon h nu dash upon c into cos phi. Yeah, the angle is phi, no? And vertical direction is opposite to the angle, no? So that's why this component becomes as h nu dash upon c into cos phi, and the horizontal quantity is sorry, this is horizontal one, and the sorry, I told in a wrong way, and the vertical component is h nu dash upon c into sin phi. So as it is opposite, here we have to write the sin. Sorry. Right, what we have, I write once again. So vertical is opposite to the angle, no? So here we can write it as the h nu dash upon c into sin phi. Okay na? And the horizontal one becomes as h horizontal one becomes as, once again I am writing h nu dash upon c into sine alpha, and the horizontal one becomes as h nu naught upon c into cos phi, sin phi and cos phi, sin phi and cos phi. In the similar way, we go for the electrons. So this is a vertical component, and the quantity of the vertical component is mv into sin theta, and the quantity of the horizontal component is mv sin theta, mv sin theta, mv cos sorry, this is mv cos theta, sorry, mv cos theta, mv cos theta and mv sin theta. Vertical component of the scattered, the momentum of the scattered electron in the vertical direction is mv sin theta, and the momentum of the scattered electron in the horizontal direction is mv cos theta. So here these points you have to remember. The momentum of the scattered X-rays in the vertical direction is h nu naught or h nu dash upon c into sin alpha, and in the horizontal direction is h nu dash upon c into cos phi, and the momentum of the electron, scattered electron in the vertical direction is mv sin theta, mv sin theta, and the momentum of the electron in the what is that, horizontal direction is mv cos theta, mv cos theta. So these points we have to remember. Okay. Now we know very well that the law of conservation of mass, So according to law of conservation of mass, energy cannot be created and energy cannot be destroyed, no? So before the collision, assume that the energy of the photon is h nu, energy of the photon is h nu, and energy of the electron is m naught into c to the power of 2. Here m naught is the mass of the resting electron. So this equation is according to the Einstein, E is equal to mc². Okay, and after the collision, the frequency of the photon changes. So as a result, after the collision, the energy of the scattered photon is h nu dash, and after hitting or after the collision, the electron moves with certain velocity, with some velocity, no? As a result, mass also changes. So after the collision, the energy of the moving electron becomes as mc². So this is the sum of the energies of the photons and electrons before collision and after collision, So photon energy before collision, photon energy after collision, energy of the electron before collision, energy of the electrons after collision. So that we have to remember. So this is the first point we have to remember. So here we made both them equal because here the collisions are considered as the elastic collisions, and in the elastic collisions, law of conservation of energy applies, no? So that's why here we made them equal. On rewriting these equations, that means if we bring h nu dash onto the other side, then the equation becomes like this: mc square to the is equal to the m dash c square plus h into nu minus nu dash. So the equation is changing like this. Then we have to square this equation. So on squaring that equation, we get this equation. We consider here it as the equation 1. I didn't write here, but here we consider it as the equation 1. Equation 1. You remember that one. Okay now. So m square c to the power of 4 into m dash square c to the power of 4 plus h square into in the bracket we nu square plus nu dash square minus 2 nu into nu dash plus 2 m dash c square h in brackets nu minus nu dash. So from the law of conservation of energy, we are getting this first equation from the law of conservation of energy. Here what we have to do means we have to take the sum of the energies of the photon and electron before collision and after collisions. So here we get the equation 1. After that, we have to apply the law of conservation of momentum. Because before collision the electron is at rest, but after collision the electron gets some velocity. So here we have to go for the momentum. Okay now. So in the horizontal direction, what happens before collision? Only photons have the momentum, and electrons don't have any momentum. So before collision, the momentum of the photon is h nu upon c. So after collisions, what happens? Electrons scattered with theta angle and photons are scattered with phi angle, no? So we and already I have already explained the quantity of the momentum or the momentum in the vertical direction as well as in the horizontal direction. So in the horizontal direction, this is the momentum of the electrons and this is the momentum of the photons. So sum of this momenta becomes equal to the momentum of the photon before collision. So this point we would remember. And on simplifying this equation, what do we get means look here h nu upon c and h nu naught upon c into cos theta, we are taking them to the same side. As a result, what happens means we get this equation. Here we are taking this c to this side. As a result, it becomes mvc. Okay, so that we would remember. So on the whole, anyhow, this equation simplifies as mvc cos theta is equal to the h nu minus h nu dash cos theta, cos phi. Okay, and still if we simplify that one, that equation becomes as mvc cos like this: mvc cos theta is equal to h into nu minus nu dash cos phi. We consider this as the equation 2. So equation 1 is derived by considering the law of conservation of mass, and equation 2 is derived by considering the law of conservation of mass in the horizontal direction. In the vertical direction, the momentum of the photon is equal to the momentum of the electrons. So here mv sin theta is the momentum of the electron, and h nu dash upon c into sin phi is the momentum of the photon. In the vertical direction, both are equal. Before collision, there is no vertical direction, and after collision only this situation arises. And when the situation arises, what happens? The momentum of the electron and the momentum of the scattered photon are equal. So from this one, on rewriting, we get the third equation, that is mv sin theta is equal to the h nu dash into sin phi. This equation is the third equation. Once again, we try to recollect how these equations are derived. First equation is derived on the basis of law of conservation of mass, and second equation is derived, second and third equations are derived on the basis of law of conservation of momentum, and second equation is derived by considering the horizontal direction, the law of conservation of momentum in the horizontal direction. And we got the third equation by considering the law of conservation of mass in the vertical direction. Okay, now yes, on squaring the second and third equation and adding, what do we get means, look here, we get this equation. Okay na? This equation here. So, and we know very well, and look here m square v square c square, m square v square c square, and here it is the cos square and it is the sin square. So we can take the m square v square c square in common, and cos square theta and sin square theta common in the bracket, and we know very well that sin square theta plus cos square theta is equal to the 1, sin square theta plus cos square theta is equal to 1. As a result, in the next equation we can in this equation, in the next equation we have removed that cos square theta plus sin square theta, because their sum is equal to the 1. Okay na? And here we have simplified the other equations. As a result, what happens, we get this one. Okay na? And on expanding this one, we get this equation. And here we can club, look here, this is nu dash square into cos square phi, and this is nu dash square into sin square phi, and we can bring these two terms to the same side. As a result, we get cos square phi plus sin square phi, and already we have learned that cos square theta plus sin square theta is equal to 1. As a result, the equation is simplified like this, and we call it as the equation 4. Equation 4 is m square v square c square is equal to the h square into v square plus nu dash square minus 2 nu into nu dash into cos phi. This is the equation 4. Okay na? Equation 4. Now, if we subtract equation 4 from equation 1, we get this equation m square c to the power of 4. Here, this is from the equation 1. So, this is from equation 4. This is equation 1. This is from equation 4. So, upon doing like that, what happens means, and look here, and here from these terms, m square and c square is taken as common, and here look here, this is what is that, yes, now these two are combined here, look here, these two are combined. As a result, what happens, nu square strikes off, and nu dash square and minus nu dash square will be strike out, and we get this equation. Okay na? So what is that, m naught sorry, m square c square in bracket c square minus v square is equal to the m dash square c4 c to the power of more. So we get, anyhow we get this equation, no, we get this equation. On simplifying that one, we get what is that, this equation. Okay na? So sorry, here I have written wrongly, substituting. So from the Einstein equation you can calculate the mass, what is that, mass of the electron with moving certain velocity, no? So by this equation we can calculate, the mass of the moving electron, that is m is equal to the m dash upon under root of 1 minus v square by c square. So by this we can get this equation, m square is equal to the m naught square, so we get this equation, c square by c square minus v square. So in the place of m square, here we have the m square, no, in the place of that m square, if we substitute this one, we can strike off this c square minus v square and c square by c square minus v square. As a result, what happens means the equation changes like this, m naught square into c to the power of 4 is equal to the m naught square into c to the power of 4 plus so, and all these things while doing the deriving equation we can easily reproduce. So here we get this equation, anyhow we get this equation. Okay now, but here we can whenever we bring this to this side, what happens, we both of them cancel each other, no? As a result, what happens, we can make these two terms equal. Okay, so as a result, what happens, we get this equation, h upon m naught 6 square into 1 minus cos phi is equal to this equation. Okay na? And on doing all these simplifications, we get delta c by delta lambda by c. So, and on rewriting the equation, what do we get means delta lambda is equal to the h upon m naught c into 1 minus cos phi. Okay, and here lambda and lambda dash are the wavelengths of incident and scattered photons. So delta lambda gives us the change in the wavelength on the scattering and is called Compton effect. So here the delta lambda is the shift in the wavelength of the X-rays, and here we know very well that h is a Planck constant and m naught is also a constant, mass of the resting electron, and c is light velocity. All these are constants, no? As a result, this lambda becomes constant, and that lambda naught here is called as the what is that, Compton wavelength. That is called as the Compton wavelength. Compton wavelength means wavelength of the resting electron. Wavelength of the resting electron. Okay, no? And from this equation, if you remove the constants, what happens? We can write a equation in the form of the proportionality form, no? So we will get that equation. Look here. So if you remove the proportionality, we get this equation, that is delta lambda into is proportional to the 1 minus cos phi. Here so by this equation we can say that the shift in the wavelength does not depend on the scattering angle as well as on the scattering material. So, irrespective of the scattering material, the shift in the wavelength depends only on the scattering angle. It depends only on the scattering wavelength. In the equation, we have only scattering angle, no? So, by this we can confirmly say that it depends on only on the scattering angle, but not on the nature of the material and not on the wavelength of the incident light. It does not depend on the nature of the light as well as it does not depend on the nature of the scattering material. Okay, that point we would remember. Lambda, so we can say that the final Compton's equation is that delta lambda is proportional to the 1 minus cos phi. Here phi is the scattered angle. Okay now. So here we have some experimental proof also. So by the Compton's angle, Compton's equation, we can calculate the increase in the wavelength, no? So here in the first example, we can see that one. So if that angle is theta, what happens? Cos theta becomes 1. As a result, what happens? The delta lambda becomes 0. That means there will be no change in the wavelength of the light. So this is found true. So when the light, okay, now next we go for the second example. Look here, when the theta is 90 degrees, then the cos 90 becomes 0, no? And the delta lambda becomes h by m dash c. And we know all these values, Planck constant value, we know the mass of the electron, and we know the light velocity. And applying all these terms, we get that the delta lambda is equal to the 0.0243 angstroms. And in actual experiments, it is found true. That means when light is allowed to fall on the scattering material with 90 degrees, we found 0.0243 angstroms increase in the scattered wavelength. So as it was found true in the experiments, we can say that Compton effect is 100% possible. Compton effect is 100% true. And here when the angle is 180 degrees, that means when the scattered radiation is in the opposite direction exactly, then what happens? We know very well that cos 180 degrees value is minus 1. As a result, if you substitute that in the equation, what happens? We get delta lambda as the 2 into h by m dash c. That means exactly it is a double to the value of the lambda, delta lambda value when the angle is 90 degrees. So the value of the delta lambda becomes as the 0.0484 angstroms. In actual practice, it is found true. So as the calculated values are very much coinciding with the experimental value as the theoretical value, that means calculated values are exactly similar with the experimental value. So we can say that these experimental values are supporting the Compton effect. That means Compton effect is 100% true. Now we go for the applications of the Compton effect. So here Compton effect is very important in supporting some points. What are they? Now let us look. First point is that this method gives a convincing evidence of the particle nature of the electromagnetic radiation. Einstein explained by considering the photons as the particles. Einstein explained photoelectric effect by considering the particle nature. he was able to explain. In the similar way, that is the theoretical explanation. And now here Compton effect is also one more theoretical support that supports the particle nature of the photons. Okay, that is the main point we have to remember. According to Compton, electrons, what the photons have the particle nature. Photons have the particle nature. Secondly, it provides an indirect verification of the Planck's quantum hypothesis, because here in deriving the Compton shift, that means delta lambda value, we have used the equations proposed by the Planck. They are E is equal to the h nu, okay na, and momentum is equal to h nu by c. So we have used these equations, no. So and by using this we have derived delta lambda equation, and we have found the delta lambda values correctly by the experiments. So this Compton effect strongly supports the Planck's quantum hypothesis. In the similar way, we have used the Einstein equation also, E is equal to mc square, no. So this Compton effect also supports strongly the Einstein's equation, that is E is equal to the mc square. So like that, we can say that Compton effect is very important in understanding the atomic structure. Okay na? Thank you very much.